What an exciting day in Greenville, North Carolina. Dale Murphy in the Pirate Radio studio. It's hard for me to believe. Welcome to Greenville. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here, and I feel like I'm in Pirate country, but also Braves country, so it's great.
Absolutely. A little bit of both. East Carolina fans love the Atlanta Braves and love you, and super excited to have you today. You came in the studio, you're kind of like Santa Claus. You walked in, and just your presence was a great present. Look forward to hearing you talk to our audience later today. What's going on with Dale Murphy? How's life?
Great. You know, Dale Murphy fans from back in the day probably be a little shocked to hear we're expecting our 16th grandchild.
Wow, a lot more Murphys.
Yeah. So Murph's a grandpa, but things are going really well. We got a restaurant we're trying to expand in Atlanta, down by the ballpark there, and I love to speak. I'm traveling around, brought me here, and that's about it, really. Speaking in the restaurant keeps me busy.
And for folks, you're going to be in Atlanta a lot this spring and summer. Do you spend a lot of time at the restaurant if people go and dine there?
Yeah, as long as I'm there. You're right. We're going to be there for most of April, May, and June. Nancy and I are looking forward to getting back there. We live out west in Utah, so like I said, we're trying to expand the restaurant. It's Murph's. If anybody's curious, we're in the Galleria there in the Cumberland area by the ballpark, not in the Battery. So it's going really good. And also we have our MVP experiences. Nancy and I host a group of people at the restaurant, then we go over the game with them, and we're with them during the game in a suite. So the MVP experiences, the restaurant, and speaking keeps me busy.
Dale Murphy, such an icon, a living legend. Number 3 for the Atlanta Braves, 2-time NL MVP. What's like the most number one question you get asked the most when you interact with so many different people? What's the top question that people want to know about Dale Murphy?
What's Bob Horner up to?
Is he the most popular teammate that people ask you about?
It's so interesting, the power of TBS. They usually go, no matter where I am, they go through the lineup. How's Glenn Hubbard, Bruce Benedict? What's Rafael Ramirez? Have you seen him? And of course, they ask about Bob. But I think the main thing is those early '80s teams. We had some pretty competitive teams, and as you and I have talked about, the power of TBS and going all over the country, if not the world, I guess, if you had a dish back then. But people are just there was a real good connection there with the fans. And I always say, our announcers did such a good job because they brought you, Skip and Pete and Ernie, they brought you a hometown broadcast as opposed to the game of the week, which was not really a hometown broadcast. It was announcers that didn't know us. They tried to study, but, our announcers and our broadcasters, they traveled with us. They saw us every day, and it was really a hometown broadcast. So it really, I think, endeared the fans to the team. And so it's fun to travel around the country and talk about those teams back in the TBS days.
Yeah, growing up a Braves fan, I mean, pre-digital age, if you miss the game, you miss the game,
Right.
But having games on TV as much as you guys were on TV, and this consistency of the team staying together without as many free agents, that you knew that, hey, Dale Murphy, Bob Horner, Chris Champ, they were going to be on the team pretty much the next year. So the baseball cards kind of matched up with who was playing on TBS. So always that loyalty, and I do think all the broadcasters were tremendous too.
Yeah, I think they should be in the Hall of Fame. I think Ted Turner should be in the Hall of Fame. That the whole TBS thing really grew not only Braves fans but baseball fans. I mean, people like baseball because they remember those days of watching the Braves on TBS. And Ted, he didn't. I understood that he was just looking for content. I mean, he bought the Braves to put them on his channel because he needed some sports programming, and it's the whole legacy is one of really growing the game of baseball that I think is really kind of unknown, except with Braves fans and TBS fans. You know what I mean? People don't understand that whatever state I go in and give a talk, people come up to me and, Elko, Nevada, I ran into someone, I wasn't in Elko, but, I'm from Elko, and they went through my whole lineup. And if you think about it, we were never in the World Series.
Right.
But we were, as you said, we were on all the time. And so baseball is a game, it's a long season, and it's kind of like you want to see how this thing plays out. It takes a long time, and there's just talking about the game, there are times where you got to fill in about the player. And our announcers, brought that feeling to the people in Fargo, North Dakota. I talked to someone there. A number of people in North Dakota. I gave a talk there, and there were probably 80 people there in the audience that had watched the games on TBS. So it was really a unique thing. It was fun to be a part of. But the older I get, the more I appreciate it, I think.
Absolutely. I diehard Braves fan, diehard Dale Murphy fan. Now, when you look at your playing career and reflect, are there one or two moments, one or two plays that stand out above the rest when you think, man, I remember that's one play, or that game was my favorite?
Well, I start smiling because, as you know, and remember, 82 we got to the playoffs, but we got swept, so it was pretty quick. We were out of there. 83 and 84, we were competitive. But what's funny is there's a couple things that kind of stick out, and you'll laugh when I say them, but. The first is the first 2 weeks of 82. We went 13-0, and it was like we had won the World Series. We went home after we'd won about 9 or 10. Our first, I can't remember exactly, but there were thousands of people at the airport. After our first 10 games, we were undefeated, and it was so exciting. People, even the World Series teams of the later years, people said that first 2 weeks of 82 was still incredible. And but then the other things, people always ask me about, you ask what sticks out, it's just because people ask me all the time, and these would be things that I would always remember, but people love to talk about July 4th, 1985, where we played all night and got rained out, and Rick Camp, it's funny, we got a pitcher that couldn't hit one of the most memorable home runs to Atlanta Braves fans. Hank Aaron beat Babe Ruth, and Dave Justice, I think, hit a big home run in the playoffs, and Chipper, of course, and all these people, my generation. Tell me about the Rick Camp home run in extra innings of that July 4th game. Of course, I got home about 4:30 or 5 that morning. It's a long story, but I get asked about that a lot. So I think that's it. Really, 82 and that crazy July 4th game. I get asked about those things a lot. But I had a few good games, but I really didn't do anything. I mean, down the stretch in 82, I hit a home run. I remember. I can't remember. I had a couple good at bats. Hit a home run in Dodger Stadium, and I had a walk-off single, I think, against the Braves. I can't remember the exact times, but if you get into the playoffs or World Series, I could probably talk about something that a little more memorable, but I didn't really have a very good playoff series, actually. So, but those are the things that I think about.
Well, you're very humble. You're an all-star in all our minds. I could sit here for hours and just pick your brain, but we got to get to events and let the public of Greenville get to meet you and greet you. But thank you so much for agreeing to come to Greenville, North Carolina. Excited to spend the day with you and let you tell your story, and look forward to continuing to follow and always be a Dale Murphy fan, even bigger after today.
Thank you so much, and we'll talk again. Let's have me back on the station, and the older I get, the more I like to talk about it. So
maybe you need your own radio show here on Defire Radio.
Let's do it.
Anything's possible. Thanks for being here. Appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.